All right, welcome to Unit 4, where today we're going to talk about complement. And complement is a group of plasma proteins present in blood that aids in inflammation and lysis of cells. It's a system of free-floating globulin proteins found in blood and made in the liver. They actually complement antibodies, and that's why it's called complement. There are four major roles of complement. 1. Complement promotes acute inflammatory response. 2. Complement alters the cell surface to encourage opsonization, and if you recall, opsonization is when a cell is being prepared for digestion by being coated with molecules that bind with phagocytes. The third major role of complement is to modify cellular surfaces, leading to cell lysis, and the fourth major role of complement is to regulate humoral immunity. Some characteristics of complement. They are plasma globulin proteins, groups 18 to 25. That's actually 25 if we include the proteins or the precursor proteins. Complement is found in the serum of animals. It's composed mainly of globulin proteins, and that's going to be the beta 1 and beta 2 proteins. It's a highly unstable compound. It is mostly formed in the liver. Components C3 and C9 are the chief components or principal components of complement. There are some parts of complement that are formed in macrophages, and that would be components C2 and C4 through C8. Just so you know, complement is identified by the letter C, followed by a number that denotes its terminal sequence. A lowercase letter indicates a component was split. For example, C1QRS. Complement is denoted with C, followed by 1, that denotes its terminal sequence, and then QRS are lowercase letters indicating that complement was split. So let's go ahead and talk about how complement can be inactivated. Sometimes complement needs to be inactivated when we're doing tests in vitro. And one way that complement can be inactivated, or the chief way that complement can be inactivated, is by heating it for 30 minutes at 56 degrees. This is the most common and best way to inactivate for serological procedures. The one test that I always think about is the syphilis test, known as the VDRL test. And in that test, the spinal fluid has to be deactivated for complement. And we deactivate or inactivate complement by heating it for 30 minutes at 56 degrees. Other ways that we can inactivate complement would be refrigerating for 3 to 4 days, violently shaking our tube, anticoagulants, and certain compounds such as ether, acids, alkalis, soap, and bile salts. Generally, complement in serum lives in the inactive form until something activates it. So complement can be inactivated, but it can also be reactivated, and it can be reactivated for serological analysis by letting it stand at 7 to 37 degrees for about 4 hours. Complement can also be preserved, and we can preserve it by freezing it or lyophilization. Complement can be used to enhance some antigen-antibody reactions for visualization in vitro. Guinea pig serum is the usual source of complement in laboratory testing. It contains high amount of complement and is more consistent than human serum. And there's a little guinea pig there. And a little guinea pig here. And I like this little guinea pig here. Aww, that's so cute. There are 3 units of complement: the recognition unit, the activation unit, and the membrane attack unit. The recognition unit senses a corresponding immunoglobulin or molecule. The activation unit is the enzymatic process of complement activation, and the membrane attack unit leads to cellular destruction. The principal complement components are C1 through C9. In the recognition unit, this is where antigen-antibody reaction occurs. Complement senses the Fc receptors on antibodies. Complement is activated, forming C1QRS. C1Q binds to an immunoglobulin molecule, and that's either 1 molecule of IgM or 2 molecules of IgG. C1R and C1S activate the next step of the classical pathway. And here's more about the recognition unit. C1 has 3 proteins held together by calcium. Calcium is a required element. C1Q has binding sites for IgG and IgM. C1Q binds to the antigen-antibody complex. C1R is the activating enzyme of the critical catalytic site of C1. C1S activates C2 and C4, and this triggers the classical pathway with C1QRS complex. When an immunoglobulin is mediated or mediates binding of complement, that affects the activation unit. C4 is the second most abundant unit of complement. It's activated by C1QRS. It's broken down to C4A and C4B. C4 is then activated and broke down to C4A and C4B. C2 is activated by C4B. C4B2A with calcium activates C3. And then 6,3, which is the most abundant component of complement, is activated and broken down to C3A and C3B. C1 then cleaves C4 to C4A and C4B. C4B attaches to the cell membrane, and C1 cleaves C2 into C2A and C2B. C2A combines with C4B on the cell membrane, and C4B2A complex cleaves C3 into C3A and C3B. C4B2A complex is known as the enzyme C3 classic pathway convertase. And finally, the last component of complement is the membrane attack unit that leads to cellular destruction. The membrane attack unit includes complement component C5, C6, C7, C8, and C9. Activated C3 leads to the development of the membrane attack unit. C4B2A3B cleaves the C5 molecule. This is C5 convertase. C5b absorbs C6, C7, C8, and C9. The end result is lysis of the cell. Once C9 is complex, the cell swells and sodium and water enter the cell until the cell ruptures. So the best way that you can memorize the complement cascade is to write out all of the steps or draw out all of the steps, including the recognition unit and what's happening there, the activation unit and what's happening there, and then finally the membrane attack unit. There are three different complement pathways: the classical pathway, the alternate pathway, and the mannose binding lectin pathway. The classical pathway is triggered by coming in contact with immunoglobulins. The alternate pathway is not triggered by immunoglobulins, but instead is triggered by microorganism, proteins, or even venom. The alternate pathway is always operating at a low level like a car engine on idle. The mannose binding lectin pathway is similar to the classical pathway, but it recognizes mannose as a sugar on the surface of some organisms like Salmonella, Listeria, or Neisseria. So complement is activated in the classical pathway by one molecule of IgM or two molecules of IgG, and the classical pathway does require calcium. The alternate pathway is activated not by antigen-antibody complexes, but by venom, inulin, bacterial polysaccharides, and it does require magnesium. Both pathways lead to the cleaving of C3. And then finally we have the mannose binding lectin pathway. The complement cascade can also be initiated by mannose binding lectin, which will bind to terminal mannose groups on a variety of bacteria. This complement activation pathway is not generally discussed as often as the classical and alternative pathways, but I did want to mention it here. When complement is activated and leads to cellular destruction, it usually follows this order: C1, C4, C2, C3, and then the membrane attack unit, C5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And that's the order and principal components of the complement classical pathway. There are many activities of different components of complement and things that different components of complement are responsible for. So C1 through C9, those components are responsible for lysis of red cells and lysis of bacteria, and also for the making of immune complexes. C1, C4b, C2a, that complex is also known as C3 convertase. Its primary function is to neutralize viruses. C3a, C4a, and C5a have to do with aflatoxins. C5a and C3a are strong chemotactic agents. C3b and C4b play a role in opsonization, and C3a and C5a play a role in inflammation and release of histamine. So let's talk a little bit about complement assessment or regulation of complement activity. The purpose is to ensure that complement is not being used excessively or inappropriately by the body. Complement can cause tissue destruction, and if it's constantly activated, it can cause intravascular hemolysis. The complement system can contribute to the pathology of a disease if it is activated for prolonged periods of time or if its levels are significantly increased. So complement is regulated by what's known as inactivators and inhibitors. Complement is regulated by inactivators and inhibitors. Inactivators are enzymes that destroy the primary structure of the complement components, while inhibitors combine with complement components in ways that prevent their future interaction with other intermediates of the cascade. Some people can actually have deficiencies of the complement system. When complement levels are low in their serum or in their plasma, we need to ask ourselves a series of questions. Has complement been used excessively? Is complement currently being consumed? Or is a single component of complement absent due to some sort of genetic condition? People that have specific complement deficiencies are more prone to getting certain disorders. For example, if a person has a C1R deficiency, they're likely to have lupus or an increased number of infections. If they are deficient in C1S, they can have lupus-like symptoms and increased number of infections. If they are deficient in C2, they could have recurrent pyogenic infections. If they are deficient in C3, they can have infections more often from encapsulated bacteria. If they have a deficiency in C4, they could develop a lupus-like syndrome. If they have a deficiency in C5, they could have depressed phagocytosis, and they may be at risk of increased Neisseria infections. C6, they could have recurrent Neisseria infections. C7, recurrent Neisseria infections and glomerulonephritis. And then finally, if they are deficient in C8, they could have recurrent Neisseria infections and a lupus-like syndrome. So I always say, if they ask about specific complement deficiencies on the board of certification, your answer should be Neisseria infection or lupus. Ha ha ha. So complement diseases, they're either acquired or congenital, and here are some examples of each. So some acquired complement abnormalities would be immune complex abnormalities. That's basically where you have issues of your antibodies binding to antigens. You could have autoimmune diseases, especially if you're lacking C3 or C4. You could have lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and that's especially if you're lacking C3. Sickle cell disease, usually people that have sickle cell disease are deficient in C3 and C4. And the neonatal respiratory distress syndrome. Those are 6 examples of acquired complement abnormalities. Congenital complement abnormalities are C1 esterase inhibitor low levels. Thus, the classical pathway is constantly activated. Vasoactive agents are constantly released and blood vessels undergo constant dilation and constriction. And then also another congenital complement abnormality is a deficiency in C2 and C5. So some roles of the complement system. What's the purpose of the complement system? The purpose is bacterial and cellular lysing. It also helps immune complexes of antigen and antibody adhere to other surfaces, like the surface of RBCs, silica gel particles, starchy material, and bacterial surfaces. So that's one way complement can help us in serological testing. Complement system also enhances opsonization. Of course, that's part of your second line of defense, which is inflammation and phagocytosis. And then finally, the last role of complement is to identify disease status with complement fixation tests. The complement fixation test is a procedure that detects the presence of a specific antigen-antibody reaction by causing the in vitro activation of complement. If complement is not fixed, lysis of reagent red cells will occur. If complement is fixed with antibody, no lysis occurs. So we don't want to get into complement fixation tests too much here, especially now that they're using more molecular methods, but I did want to mention it. So that's it for the complement system. Probably not one of the most exciting subjects we'll ever talk about, but it is something you need to know. So I would suggest you go through this PowerPoint a couple times and look at complement in your textbook. And I'll see you soon for lecture number 5.